Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau.
The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by MediaClip, Photo Finale, and Advertech Printing. Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Pageau. Today we have a different show for you, a blast from the past, if you will. In 2008, I was in San Mateo, California to interview entrepreneur and author Guy Kawasaki. The interview was held in the Ice Oasis ice rink just prior to Kawasaki's ice hockey match. The audio was never published then, but with Guy's permission, we're now publishing it. In 2008, the tech world was a very different place, so some of the company names and technologies may seem outdated and quaint, but the conversation covered broader topics which I think will still be interesting to consider. Today, Guy Kawasaki is the chief evangelist of Canva and the creator of Guy Kawasaki's Remarkable People podcast. He has written 15 books, including Wise Guy, The Art of the Start 2.0, The Art of Social Media, and Enchantment. So, without further delay, let's travel back to the year 2008 and our interview with Guy Kawasaki. Okay, we're here at the lovely Ice Oasis talking with Guy Kawasaki prior to his big hockey match this morning. And we're going to be talking about a little bit about the future of entrepreneurship and social media and the internet. So, Guy, first of all, you've been, I think everyone in our audience probably knows you very well through your Apple evangelism days and some of the times you've spoken at our various events. How has entrepreneurship changed over the last, let's say, 5 or 10 years? What's changed in the type of people who are looking to your VC company for investment and support?
Well, I don't think there's been big changes in that sense. The people, the type of people, what they're looking for. At any given point, it's usually the young people because they have nothing to lose, they have nothing to do, they don't know what they're getting into, whereas older people know what they're about to get into. So I don't think that's changed very much. The biggest change that I've seen recently is that it is much cheaper to start a company. Mm-hmm. And this is because of MySQL and Rails and PHP and open source and offshoring and WordPress and you name it, right? So now you really can't start a web company for $20,000, something like that. That number used to be $1 million. It would take you a year of 2 or 3 people programming. Now that takes 3 months. It's a very different world. And I happen to be a believer in the law of big numbers, which is the more monkeys trying companies, the more likely there will be a great company. And before, if you took $1 million for a monkey to try, that's one thing. But if it takes 20,000, 1/50th of that, I think there'll be more monkeys and therefore more companies. So life is good right now for an entrepreneur.
Actually, let's jump ahead and talk a little bit about starting a company for $20,000 because you've kind of done that.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about Troomers?
Yeah, I started, the company's name is No No Nina, and it has 2 properties, Troomers and Alltop. Troomers was started as a way for us to democratize information. The trend has been from rich people with scribes to rich people with printing presses to less rich people with Macintoshes and laser writers to websites to bloggers. But even at that last point, bloggers, you still had to own a blog. You had to run a blog. And frankly, the hardest part of a blog is coming up with content day in and day out. So we wanted to make it even easier so you didn't have to own a blog, but you could just post news to a site. And so Troomers was a wide open place where you could post you could post news through various channels onto a site that thousands of people come to. We have subsequently made it less democratic, honestly. We found that if you make it wide open, you get a lot of crap. So now we have sort of 2 systems going on. One is if we know you and you've become a Troomerist, you have an account and you can post anything. But if we don't know you, you can still post, but we hold those posts pending sort of status until we double check it. And it's done well. It is a good way to think of Trumers is NPR for your eyes as opposed to your ears. So we try to find these human interest stories from all over the world and put them in one place. And that company was started for about $12,000. We probably have 20,000 into it now. Alltop, which is part of the, its sister site, if you will, is a series of feed aggregations about various topics. For your audience, we have photography.alltop.com, and at photography.alltop.com we have feeds and sources from the most popular photographic blogs and sites. So if you want to follow photo news, you come to photography.alltop.com. You'll see all of the last 5 headlines from the most popular sources. And if you mouse over the headline, you'll see the first paragraph of each source. So this is a way to keep track of all the review sites, all the news sites in one place.
So these were, you've chosen to spend time, of all the things you can spend your time on what are essentially media companies.
Yes.
Do you think that's the destiny of most of these companies, to become some sort of media conglomerate? Because even if you look at the old style companies, they all have their own blogs, they have their own media, they have their own channels where they're trying to communicate their own message. It seems like everyone, regardless of their business, is becoming a media company.
Well, I don't know, will Harley Davidson become a media company?
I think they already are.
Well, I mean, truly Harley Davidson has media and social networking and all that kind of buzzwords around it, including the Harley's Owners Club. But fundamentally, it sells motorcycles, right? I mean, it's a motorcycle company that has great marketing. It's not a marketing company that, we also make motorcycles if you want to buy something. So I think it's too strong to say that every company is going to be a media company. I think every company will have an aspect of media to it in its marketing fold. But Trumers and Alltop are media companies, and Dig is a media company. Delicious is a media company. Flickr is a media company. But Apple, I don't think, is a media company.
Well, iTunes.
But that is a media aspect of a hardware company. I don't see the day where they create a reference design for iPod and Macintosh and they no longer ship hardware. That's unlikely, right?
Yeah, exactly. But, like, for example, if you look at what's happening with Microsoft and going after Yahoo, which is a form of a media company.
Yes,
right,
yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it certainly is there's this great desire among established players to become a media company, which is fascinating.
The irony is that, I don't know if it's true everywhere, but particularly in Silicon Valley, you always want to be something you're not, right? So all the hardware companies, they say, God, if we could be a media company. Look at Apple, right? They sell a song for 99 cents. What's their cost of goods sold? Well, that's some royalty. Is there any inventory carrying charges? No. Is there any, can you ever be out of stock of a song? No. Imagine the margins. We just, people just download bits and we sell that. What a great model. And then I could tell you that probably there's somebody inside Sony Music saying, wow, wouldn't it be great to be Apple? I mean, that we could sell something solid and people would, you can't steal it, you can't rip it off, you can't, illegally copy it. You have to go to the Apple store and you have to buy an iPod. There's no, there's counterfeit iPods, I suppose, but not in the sense that there's stolen music, right?
But if you look at, I don't want to dwell on Apple, but certainly Apple would say they're a hardware company. They're all about selling hardware. They want to sell Apple TVs, they want to sell Macintosh, they want to sell iPods.
Right.
The software enables the sale of the hardware.
Yeah. So they're both.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that, I bet many media companies wish they could sell something that can't be ripped off, and many hardware companies sell something that they wish had no cost of goods sold and no inventory carrying issues, right? And no.
Right. So what's the advice then for someone who has a business?
The advice is take your best shot.
Well, let's say, for example, you are a professional lab and you service professional photographers and you help them with their business. Okay, now by hosting their images and selling their prints and help them. So what would then be, maybe they're tempted to maybe hire their own photographers and become vertically integrated to get more volume. What would you think of that?
Well, but that would be describing becoming a vertically integrated Getty, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of people who look at Getty and saying, "Wow, would you want to be Getty?" Right? I mean, there's only several thousand professional photographers. They're trying to sell a photo for $300. Meanwhile, Getty buys iStock photo with prosumers, and they're trying to sell a photo for $3. Wow. We just went from 300 to 3, and that's within the same company, right?
Right.
So if I were a professional photo lab, would I want to be? That's a hell of a transition. I'd have to think about that. I don't know if. Well, certainly, if I were a professional photo lab, I don't think that you should look at it and say Facebook is the answer.
Right, exactly.
We need to be a Facebook.
Right.
Because they don't understand that Facebook, their business model is dubious. Right? They have, 50 million eyeballs. And Facebook is trying to figure out how to monetize that too. Right? So, just because, in Silicon Valley, many companies have very high valuation. That doesn't mean they have high revenue.
Right, exactly.
And it certainly doesn't mean they have high profit.
Exactly. A point you've made in the past is, one of the reasons why YouTube is so successful is part of the reason is Google bought them.
Well, yeah.
It kind of saved their bacon.
Right. I mean, that happens time and time again in Silicon Valley. PayPal wasn't exactly kicking butt when eBay bought it, right? And so, now, I don't think your listeners should therefore conclude, well, let's just create a dumbass company with no business model and then somebody will rescue us. Because, hope is not a strategy.
Right.
But, wow, it's hard to explain some of these things. And let's take the case of YouTube. So if YouTube had come to us, and I'll be the first to admit we're not proven as a venture capitalist, but if YouTube had come to us and basically said, we need infinite server space with infinite bandwidth so that people can rip off copyrighted video and upload it, and probably what's going to make us successful is a couple guys dropping Mentos into Diet Cokes, we probably would not have written the check. Now, if YouTube were not bought by Google and it would just be out there, it would be interesting because they would be burning through servers and burning through bandwidth, and they would be burning through legal costs, and they would be one of 25 of these video sites, and they would be trying to figure out, well, can we run an ad next to the Diet Coke and Mentos for Diet Coke? Does Target want to buy that? Yeah, right. Would Pepsi want to buy that slot? They'd be having this discussion.
So they kind of dodged the bullet.
They dodged the bullet, and I don't think it's a palatable strategy to say our corporation is based on the concept of dodging bullets.
Right.
That's typically not the way you want to go.
Exactly.
So I'm on the inside of this valley, and I tell you, even if you're on the inside, you look at it, you say, "Wow, can this last?"
Exactly.
So I just hope that your listeners don't think that we know what the hell we're doing here, because we don't. Don't separate. Don't confuse luck.
Right, because luck and timing are So what are some of the areas you would definitely think of avoiding in terms of the bullets you better dodge?
Well, I think making any kind of hardware device is very difficult, and we get pitches all day long that we want to build the ultimate photo frame, right? So this frame will have 802.11 built in, and people can just bring their camera in, and the camera will sense the photo frame, and it will automatically download it wirelessly and all that. And then you say, well, but there's these $200-$300 ones from 10 different companies in Target, and they say, yeah, but we're going to be better than them because we're going to have better integration, and then we're going to integrate Facebook-like quality, so you download your photos, but then you can share them with your friends, and then you build up your profile, and then you can add music to your photos and all that. And And wow, that is like wishful thinking, right? So
because you got to be able to evolve the product.
Well,
you got to ship it and then change and then and then refresh it.
All that whizzy stuff that you think is so obvious why it's better than the $100 one that Seiko is making, or I don't know who makes these things. Just
everybody.
Yeah, everybody, right? So you walk into Target, there's a shelf full of photo frames right now, right? But you're an entrepreneur, and you believe because you have social networking tied into it, and it's going to, update your Flickr feed automatically or whatever. And
but that can be easily copied too.
Yeah, and fundamentally, you have to make this thing as cheap as you can, right? And then you believe that you have such a compelling story that you're going to call up Best Buy, and Best Buy is going to just clear the shelf for you and put you up there, right?
Yeah, and
good luck.
But back, let's say in 83 and 84, the driving force probably was, I am going to change the world. I'm going to come out with this device that is going to change how people work and behave. Have we reached the point where that's not realistic anymore? There is no device out there that's going to...
I think many people will change the world. It's just not clear to me that it's going to be by doing a slightly better device that you believe... I can't tell you how many companies come into us and they say, well, the photo frame that... who picks one? Who makes one?
Kodak.
Okay, Kodak. The photo frame that Kodak makes, it doesn't have the right integration, doesn't have social networking type, blah, 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 blah. And we believe that we'll be able to have lower manufacturing prices than Kodak. Because this is two guys in a garage who have not built their first one yet.
Right.
And they're saying they're gonna have a lower cost of goods sold than Kodak. And what they're doing is they're saying, well, because our thing is so neat, we're gonna sell 100,000 a month. And at 100,000 a month, because we have these friends in Taiwan, they say for a commitment of 1.2 million units a year,
they'll get
really low cost, right? And so we're going to beat Kodak's price. Okay, there's only one problem with that theory. That assumes you're building 1.2 million a year.
Right.
Probably you're going to build 10,000 in the first run, if that. And your prices cannot be as good as Kodak's, right? So you're taking this best case future against sort of Kodak's reality today. How often does that best case future happen?
Usually by accident.
Yeah, certainly not.
And certainly not in the mass market.
Right.
Because the uptake of these things in the mass market, they're not intrigued by the whiz-bang features.
No. I don't know even how you communicate the whiz-bang feature. I mean, you run a TV commercial that says we have 802.11n, not A, and
yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, it's like one of those things where it's very difficult to communicate, to make complex technology simple, and then to communicate the benefits of that.
That's even harder.
Exactly.
And I've come to believe that it's as a venture capitalist, we assume that the innovation, the technology can be done. That's not always a good assumption, but we assume that. And then the question becomes, let's assume it is done. Does anybody care?
Right.
And if anybody cares, can you get to those people?
Right.
And those are the harder parts of the question.
Right, because at some point you have to get a return, and you got to get to the customer. So if you're talking about something on the web, you're talking about very, very short attention spans, very, very short, very little loyalty
in a big noisy environment.
Very little loyalty. Look at the exodus from people going from MySpace to Facebook, and certainly somewhere out there's the next Facebook. It's certainly out there. No one's seen it yet, but it's going to come.
It's going to come. Yeah.
So the question is what's going to happen with the next thing and the ease of that transition. It seems to me, for example, in the Web 2.0 space, the big appeal is you're not committed. I can take these mashups and these different, and like the all-top type thing, I can read all the best or see the clips from all the best reviews without actually having to go there.
All right. And the beauty of something like all-top is that we're not creating the media. I mean, we're not creating those contents, right? So we have you could call it a partnership, or you could say a mutually parasitic relationship. So with someone like Imaging Resource, or Digital Preview, or Steve's Digicams, or any of our favorite sites, they could look at us and say, well, so they're getting traffic for taking our feed that we paid money for to create the feed and the content in the feed. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is, if they have hundreds of thousands of people going to photography.alltop.com, some of those people are going to come to us that we never would have gotten. So it's more traffic. We're putting the feed out anyway. Hallelujah, it's cream.
Well, you're not quite at those numbers yet, though.
Yeah, but that's the dream, right?
Right. But here's the interesting model. I mean, the thing in the discussion is, okay, if there are all these aggregators out there, the Digs, all the Reddits, all those folks out there and all tops who are pulling it, somebody somewhere has to create real content. You can't
not us.
So if the advertising pie is, let's say, this big, and it's becoming more and more fragmented, where is the money going to come from to pay for the original content?
I don't know. It's my job to get some. Though. I don't know.
It's a big question because at some point, because what I think we're seeing, as a journalist looking at these things, I look at that at some point, everyone's voice can't have the same authority. Right. The crackpot in his basement who doesn't live in his house, who has an opinion on some sort of political thing, doesn't have the same authority as the Washington Post, who maybe actually has a reporter in the room.
Yeah.
But the point is, everyone's feed, however, is level.
It looks equal, yeah.
Exactly.
And
maybe the future of Alltop is to actually lend some authority to some of these people.
Well, that'd be scary. But the future of Alltop is that you'll be able to hide the feeds you don't want to see.
Right. The crackpot feed.
Yeah. What I'm afraid of is that I don't know how you decide on, quote, authority and goodness. Mm-hmm. And I'm not convinced that Dig is the way. Mm-hmm. Because Dig can be gamed. Mm-hmm. And Dig also, I must say that I just am not that enamored with the wisdom of the crowd.
I was going to talk to you about it. For our folks who may not know what Dig is, can you kind of go over Dig?
Yeah.
Because Dig is the preeminent company in this space.
So Dig is a company where you register, you get a Dig account, and then you sort of vote thumbs up or thumbs down on any given article, and enough people vote thumbs up.
Or the right people vote.
Or the right people, yeah, which is why it's gameable. If the right 50 or so people vote thumbs up, then it goes to the Dig homepage. And once you go to the Dig homepage, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because the Dig homepage has a lot of people there, so more people read it, so more people give it thumbs up, so it stays there, it gets higher, whatever. And so it's kind of a real-time polling popularity contest on a per-article basis.
For a very select crowd.
For roughly 1 million people who are nerds, basically. Yeah. So as a photographer, would I go to Dig every day? It's unlikely that any photography-related story will be there, right? Mm-hmm. It's more likely there will be something about PHP or MySQL.
Mm-hmm. Or Ron Paul.
Right. So, but that is a method. Mm-hmm. And now, if your mom or dad said to you, well, I'd like to find out, what's the most recent hot topics and news on the internet, I doubt that it's the right thing to send them to Dig, right? Because they're going to figure out that, wow, what the hell is all this stuff about?
But the founder of Dig was on the cover of Business Week because they thought it was the next big thing. That was about a year ago.
Yeah, and they need 52 people a year. I don't know. It could be. I
know. I'm just saying. It seems to me like it gets all this attention, but then it gets to the question of authority. It gets to a question of value because, like you said, it is gameable. It is. Question. I mean, if you spend any time on Dig, one of the big questions is, why is this getting on the front page with 12 digs?
You'd have to ask that question, right?
Well, they will never tell you.
Right. Well, it's not because it's one man, one vote.
Right. Exactly.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So by contrast at Alltop, we just take the stuff we like.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm a one-man Dig, if you will, right? And
So what you've got is you have, like trimmers, you've got
it's a human filter.
A human filter.
It's a very subjective human filter.
Well, with things like Mahalo coming on the scene, which is a human-generated search engine. Do you think that's sort of the future? Is that maybe we've taken the AI and the automation a little too far, and you kind of need a human element?
But I don't know how Mahalo scales. Yeah. If you think about it, there's infinite topics, right? So we have 60 topics, and that's hard. Mm-hmm. But
But but they could eventually evolve into a niche where maybe it's more of a, Tesla and things Jason Calacanis likes as opposed to, broad thing. Maybe there's a Mahalo type for various topics.
My issue with Mahalo is, how does it scale and how does it become, because the first time you go to Mahalo, let's say you type in, I go to Google and I say, well, how do I roast a turkey? And Google will give you cooking.com, recipe.com, whatever, right? I go to
Cooking.alltop.com.
Yeah, exactly. Food.alltop.com. And if I go to Mahalo and I say, how do I roast a turkey? And I don't find something, I'll never go back again, right? Right. So now, roast a turkey is pretty obvious, especially around Christmas. But, if I go to Google and I say roast a pheasant, I'm going to find something. If I go to Mahalo, roast a pheasant, I don't know. Maybe at this point. So, that would be the question. And then, with Mahalo, and I guess to extend every company, you're changing behavior, right? Like, let's just face it, everybody in the world, or I don't know, 3/4 of the world, when they want to search for something, it's like in their brain already, go to Google. Now you have to train people to go to someplace else.
Right.
And, to some extent, Alltop has less of that problem, because when you think about, I want to find all this news about a topic, I guess you could type photography news in Google, right? That would be the first reaction. The good news of that is it'll find a lot. The bad news is it'll find a lot.
Yeah.
So my challenge is to slightly change behavior too, where people will say, well, I'll go to Alltop and click on photography. And in a perfect world, when you go to Google and you type in photography news, Alltop, or photography.alltop.com will be in the first page.
Right.
Then I have both worlds. Right. But I think it's be easier for me to change behavior that way than Mahalo, to go to a different search engine.
Right.
Wow.
Right, exactly. Wow. Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be hard to overturn the Google monolith.
Yeah.
So, let's see. One of the issues that comes up with, like you talked about with stock photography and maybe some of these other issues, is the combination of professional and amateur content. And and in our segment, that is something that has appeal when you talk about, let's say, for example, you go to a major theme park, pick one in your head.
Yeah.
And let's say they had a selection of professional quality images you can integrate into the photo book you make from that experience, from your own personal pictures, and integrate it, and then they combine it. Or your child, their high school yearbook, they take pictures from the yearbook staff along with your own pictures and combine that into a combined experience. And produce something you can actually sell, which is, I know it's a crazy concept, but we're working on it as far as the industry goes. So, do you think there, well, with some of the challenges that everyone has with DRM and rights and certain things, think that's going to be changed or become easier as it goes, or that tsunami's coming, or it's hard to have a walled garden, for example.
Well, I guess there will always be a market for this $300, absolutely perfect picture of Brad and Angelina on the red carpet, right?
God forbid, but yes.
There will be that market. And maybe it's only TMZ and Perez Hilton and delisted are going to buy that from Getty, right? On the other hand, well, the beauty of Getty is they figured out that there's a $300 market and there's a $3 market, and they have both covered.
Right.
Wow, if I had a choice between which part of that equation I'd be on the $3 market. And you could make the case even in the $3 market. What happens if someday somebody says, all right, we have beautiful photography and stock photography, right? Royalty free, unlimited use, and it's free. But our model is when people are looking for those photos, we're going to sell ads next to it. Right. So can someone leapfrog iStock photo? I don't know. But it's but that's the trend, right?
Well, that's with everyone becoming a media company, as we were talking about. I know that's again, it's sort of the the old school look. At some point, someone's going to have to either produce something or be an authority on something. It all can't just be advertising at some point.
Well, the same thing is happening with user-generated news, right? So the theory is that, like, when we end this interview, you go out there and you see that there's a what could happen? There could be like a huge explosion, and you'd be the first person on it, and you have your digital camera or your cell phone camera. You take a picture and you send it to CNN. This is like 30 seconds ago. There was an explosion in Redwood City, and here's a picture of it. Whereas by the time AP or Reuters or UPI sends a photographer down here, gets it up there, it could be 2-3 hours, right? So the theory is user-generated media, user-generated journalism is going to just clean the clock of all these other established things. I haven't seen that yet. First of all, not that many people care if there's an explosion in Redwood City. I mean, exactly. If you're the first person on the London, bus, the terrorism attack, that's international. But a fire in Redwood City, So,
I mean, that stuff happens all the time, and somehow we manage to survive without knowing these things. I mean, granted, something major like probably the most covered event ever was the World Trade Center. I mean, there were so many cameras, so much coverage, and that it warranted that. The fire in Redwood City, probably not so much.
And user-generated report about the fire in Redwood City. I have to say that user-generated content, a lot of times it's just not that good, right?
Right.
No.
Well, Theodore Sturgeon once said, 80% of everything is crap.
Right. Well, I got to tell you that, on the other hand, if you look at iStock Photo, I use iStock Photo a lot for Trummers and for my speeches. And it has never been the case where I went there and could not find a photo that I used to illustrate what I wanted to illustrate. That's at $3.
But how many pictures are on that network?
On iStock Photo?
Yeah.
How many?
Yeah.
I don't know, 5 million?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
exactly. I mean, they've got that breadth to do that. So it's likely you are going to get a hit. But, not everyone's going to have that.
Yeah, but 10 years ago, if you had said, what we're going to do is we're going to start this company, and we're going to let these amateurs with digital SLRs upload photos, and we're going to pay them 15%, and the price point will be, I don't know, at that point it was $2 or $1 or whatever. And someday, webmasters and designers and marketers and speakers, they're going to come to iStock Photo and they're going to type in flowers, and they're going to get a photo of a flower.
And they want a yellow flower.
Yeah, a yellow flower, instead of hiring a professional photographer. Would you have said, that's going to happen? I don't know. I mean, it's easy for us to say now.
Right, exactly.
But I can pretty much guarantee you that somebody at Getty back then laughed at it. So this is a bunch of crap,
because it has to be a tip, and it has to be this, it has to be that.
It has to be shot in RAW. It has to have the proper lighting, and it has to.
It's interesting because I think the first iteration of digital was really about replicating. Digital photography was about replicating the film experience. And I think now, as we're entering the next phase of digital, it's, like I said, all these other things that are not necessarily about replicating the film experience, but extending it.
But the truth is that my older sons are 12 and 14.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if I said this is film, I don't even know if they, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's not like they ever used a typewriter or film.
Right.
To them, it's foreign, right? It's also interesting, it's a complete aside, but interesting story is, for me, Microsoft was this guy or this company I had to compete against, antitrust, made an operating system, evil, kind of control the world. To them, Microsoft is the company that makes Halo 3.
Right, exactly.
They don't go from nothing, right?
Exactly.
They don't have any prejudices against Microsoft.
360 is a great thing.
360 is a great thing. They love Halo. They love Guitar Hero. Life is good.
Right.
They don't care if Bomber's a nut or
Right, exactly.
They could care less. It's very interesting. So, it's not going to be anybody 10 and 10. Let's see, anybody 16 and younger, they're not going to think about, wow, particles of silver inherently give me better, right?
Dynamic range or what have you, right.
Exactly. I mean, in the same sense that there are still to this day, there are photographers who shoot in the 8x10, pull up the thing, Ansel Adams style, right? And they thought that 35 millimeter was a joke.
Right, exactly.
now the people with 35 millimeter are thinking that digital is a joke.
Right. But I guess my thing is that, like you said, in the stock photographers, no one anticipated that model.
Yeah.
So there's going to be things with photography that are post-capture, whether it's, scene recognition or facial recognition or these type of things that are really going to, I think, drive the next. Like geotagging is the hot buzz thing now. I've yet to find a real use for it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
People love it. But how does it improve your photography?
It's only if you really... I mean, it'd be a special case where, I could see if you're crossing America by motorcycle, and I could see where GPS built in. It's interesting. Now I'm in Louisville. Now I'm in, Tennessee. Now, but let's face it. Probably 99% of the photos taken by amateur digital photographers are within like a mile of their house.
Exactly.
So it's like, wow. Okay, so now I'm at 52 degrees north and 56 degrees west, and now I'm at 57.1 degree west.
Exactly.
And I can't
fathom the use for that.
On the other hand, you have to say that Google Map opened up a whole new world, right? So you never know. You never know.
Exactly. So it seems to me like a lot of what's happening with the web these days is to take these mass amounts of information, like GPS, and making it comprehensible,
right,
invisibly, trying to make these things. I think one of the things that, for example, when you mentioned Google Maps, the whole street view side of it was fascinating. When most people have no idea how difficult that was probably to do.
But have you used it twice?
Not really.
I'll tell you a very interesting...
I found my house.
Yeah, right. Everybody looks at their house and they say, okay, so that's what my house looks like. It's amazing. And okay.
Right.
I'm going to have a party at my house for Blogger, and the person who's going to help me with the party is in Houston. So I sent her a Google map of my house so she could see this is kind of the physical setting of my house, so you can see where we could have the party, right? So I don't have, obviously I'm not going to rent a helicopter to take a picture of my house. Right. So that's the second time I've used Google Maps.
In that context.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, not just for directions? When you use it for directions?
No, I mean, not...
You mean the street view kind of...
I mean, street view thing, and, the satellite photo thing, or whatever, taking that photo. But I will tell you, I read a review of a new GPS system for your car that communicates with other GPS systems of its kind, and communicates that, I'm at 101 and 92 and I'm moving at 5 miles per hour. And so if you are another one with the system, it can tell that, my brethren are stuck in a traffic jam at 101 and 92. Maybe I should go 280 instead of 101. So that, kind of makes sense that these GPS systems are communicating with each other over a network, telling each other that, you're going really slow here. You might want to avoid that.
But is that one of the major GPS vendors, or somebody with a new device like you were talking about?
It's a new device.
So
it's a new company. Yeah.
So for that to work,
you need a lot.
You need a lot of them in the same area.
But just like with iStock Photo, for that to work, you needed 5 million photos, right? When you had 50,000, you type yellow flower.
Right.
Doesn't mean anything. Also, this GPS system is cool because maybe other systems can do it now, but I don't know about you, but I never start entering a GPS system till I'm in the car moving, right?
Right. Which is the wrong thing.
Right. And this system, I think there's a natural linkage between Google Maps. So you say, all right, so I want to go to 30, Smith Road. And then you could just tell Google Maps to send it to the GPS system rather than having to go, city, streets.
Right.
It just
goes.
It's like with TiVo. Now TiVo has a web interface, so you can say, for this TiVo in my house, record the Sharks game tonight. You don't need to be at the TiVo typing in Shark S-A-R.
That sounds reasonable.
Useful. Yeah.
But there's really nothing there that a Garmin or somebody couldn't copy.
I don't think Garmin has the thing where they're talking to each other and telling each other that there's a big traffic jam here, go the other way.
But it could certainly be an upgrade.
Yeah.
Unless it's heavily patent protected or whatnot.
No.
But, so, well, to kind of wrap this up, because you've got some place to go, where do you see then, in terms of having to make decisions, at a higher level, if you're looking down the road, 3 to 5 years, granted no one's crystal ball is even remotely being clear to that standpoint, what are some of the signposts people should be looking for in terms of, major trends? I mean, just things, the tried and trues that never change.
It's kind of mission impossible, but I think the best case is, sexist as this is, you should ask your wife. Because pretty much mothers and wives know. Men have no clue. So if you tell your wife that you have this great new thing that has 802.11n, and that's why it's going to be this kick butt product, and Best Buy is going to give it shelf space, and you're going to smoke Kodak because you're going to build 1.2 million of them, and Kodak is only building 100,000 of them. And if your wife says you're nuts, you should probably listen to her. That's the best case. Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
Because I think that men have this deep-seated need to kill things. So whenever they have an opportunity to kill a company or a product or service or a person or a plant or an animal, they're predisposed to doing it. Whereas women don't have that need to kill things. So they're more objective. That's my theory.
Practical,
yes.
Exactly.
Oh, it's 11:30.
Yes.
Gotta go play hockey.
Well, thank you much.
Okay, thank
you. Take care. Good to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.